Texas cities run on the spectrum when it comes to a new study on the healthiest places in America.
Beneath the sun-scorched skies and shifting tides of the Texas coast, a series of sudden and inexplicable geological events has seized the attention of scientists across the globe. Without warning, cracks have opened in the earth along the coastal stretch, snaking across the landscape like fissures in broken porcelain. The once stable ground has begun to tear apart, disrupting ecosystems, alarming local communities, and sparking a flurry of scientific investigation. What's happening beneath the surface is far from ordinary, an unsettling reminder of how dynamic and fragile Earth's crust can be, even in places considered geologically tame. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. The phenomena were first reported by locals who noticed the ground giving way in unexpected patterns near a sparsely populated area of the Gulf Coast. Within hours, reports of wide-open crevices and fractures in the terrain grew more frequent, some stretching for miles, others deep enough to swallow entire trees and fence lines. These weren't mere surface blemishes, they were the signs of a deeper, more profound shift in the region's geological fabric. What made the situation more puzzling was the absence of traditional triggers. There had been no significant seismic activity in the region, no recent hurricanes or flooding that could justify the sudden displacement. It was as though the land had chosen to fracture of its own accord. Scientists scrambled to the scene, setting up remote sensing equipment, drones, and ground-penetrating radar to map the new terrain and gather data. Satellite imagery showed the cracks forming in a disturbingly uniform fashion, as if following some unseen pattern deep beneath the crust. Geologists from multiple universities and research institutions quickly concluded this was no typical case of erosion or ground subsidence. Something unprecedented was happening below the surface, something powerful enough to alter the coastline in real time. One of the most startling findings came from thermal imaging. Subsurface scans revealed temperature anomalies in the bedrock beneath the cracks, as if heat was building up where it shouldn't be. This led some scientists to consider the possibility of deep magmatic activity, a shocking suggestion for a region not known for volcanism. If magma or superheated fluid was migrating upward through fault lines, it could account for both the temperature spikes and the sudden fracturing. But even that theory had holes. The geology of the Texas coast has remained relatively stable for millennia, devoid of the tectonic drama seen in places like California or the Pacific Northwest. Another hypothesis points toward the shifting pressure of underground aquifers. Texas has long relied on groundwater reserves for agriculture and urban development. Over decades, these reserves have been tapped at unsustainable rates, leading to gradual land subsidence in many parts of the state. But this situation is different. The cracks appeared not gradually, but all at once, and in locations that had shown no prior signs of instability. That left researchers scratching their heads. Could there be an unknown fault system beneath the coast? Or perhaps a massive underground void collapsing inward, causing the surface to crack like a pie crust over an empty pan? Amid the scientific uncertainty, one detail stood out. The cracks appeared to be migrating. Initial satellite images captured them clustered near one town, but within days, new fissures had opened up over 100 miles away. This dynamic expansion suggested a vast, interconnected system beneath the surface. Something alive with motion, something growing. It wasn't just a static event, it was ongoing, and it defied the traditional understanding of how such geological features form and behave. The implications of these cracks run deep, not just geologically but environmentally and economically. The Texas coast is home to diverse habitats, marshes, estuaries, mangroves, and barrier islands that serve as nurseries for marine life. These ecosystems are finely tuned to the land's topography. Even slight shifts in elevation can turn wetlands into salt flats or freshwater marshes into brackish swamps. The newly formed cracks have already begun to disrupt these sensitive zones. In one area, a previously thriving bayou has started draining into a fissure, altering salinity levels and endangering native species. Migratory birds that rely on predictable water levels for nesting have started changing their flight patterns, and local fish populations are behaving erratically, as if disoriented by the sudden reshaping of their habitats. Economically, the stakes are just as high. The Texas coast hosts critical infrastructure for oil, gas, and shipping industries. Pipelines, refineries, and transport hubs depend on stable ground and predictable conditions. As cracks spread, there's a growing fear that these lifelines could be disrupted. Even a minor fracture beneath a buried pipeline could lead to catastrophic spills or explosions. Already, maintenance crews have been dispatched across the region to inspect and reinforce key installations. But the uncertainty of where the next crack might open has made proactive mitigation nearly impossible. Engineers are essentially playing geological roulette, waiting for the next shift to reveal itself. Farming communities inland from the coast are also feeling the pressure. Fields that once supported crops are now laced with jagged splits, making mechanized farming dangerous and inefficient. Irrigation systems have been destroyed or rendered useless. Some farmers report that underground water sources have either disappeared or become tainted with silt and brine, suggesting a deeper connection between the fissures and the state's already fragile water table. There's a growing consensus that this isn't just a coastal issue. It's one that could ripple far into the interior. Of course, the mystery and urgency of the situation have sparked debate among scientists. Some argue the cracks could be related to the complex interplay of salt domes, which are naturally occurring underground formations in Texas made of ancient salt deposits. When disturbed, these domes can cause the overlying land to buckle or collapse. The problem is, these features are well mapped and none of the new cracks correspond to known dome locations. Still, the theory persists, if only because it offers a somewhat comprehensible explanation in an otherwise baffling scenario. Climate change has also entered the discussion. As sea levels rise and temperatures climb, the dynamics of groundwater flow, soil composition, and even tectonic stress can change in subtle but profound ways. Some researchers wonder if long-term warming has destabilized the subsurface environment, softening clay-rich soils or altering the pressure gradients between land and sea. In this view, the cracks might be a symptom of a slow-motion crisis that's only now breaching the surface in dramatic fashion. What makes this event especially unnerving is its lack of precedent. Cracks and fissures are not uncommon in arid or earthquake-prone areas. But along the humid, flat, and seemingly benign Gulf Coast, it challenges the assumptions that have guided infrastructure, policy, and development for generations. People have built homes, highways, and industries with the belief that the land beneath them would hold steady. Now that belief is crumbling, quite literally, and it's raising urgent questions about how to prepare for what comes next. Research teams are racing to understand the mechanics of the cracks. Core samples taken from affected areas are being analyzed for clues, shifts in mineral composition, signs of subterranean erosion, or evidence of biological activity deep underground. Seismologists have begun installing dense sensor networks to detect microtremors that might precede further cracking. There's even discussion of deploying deep drilling technology to probe the fault lines directly, though the risks and costs are daunting. Meanwhile, atmospheric scientists are keeping a close watch as well. The interaction between Earth's surface and atmosphere is more complex than it often appears. A sudden reshaping of the land can influence weather patterns by altering surface heat distribution, moisture retention, and airflow. If the cracks continue to propagate, they could potentially have ripple effects beyond the ground, introducing another layer of complexity to an already confounding situation. The sheer rapidity of the changes has also caught the attention of geotechnical specialists who study soil mechanics and slope stability. They point out that the composition of coastal Texas, heavy with clay, silt, and sand, makes it especially vulnerable to liquefaction under certain stressors. If water saturation changes even slightly, it can cause entire layers of soil to behave like a fluid, undermining everything above. This might explain why some buildings near the cracks have begun to tilt, their foundations rendered useless almost overnight. Engineers are now faced with the daunting task of retrofitting infrastructure to withstand forces that were never anticipated in their original designs. Local governments are grappling with how to respond. Emergency services have cordoned off the most dangerous zones, but the unpredictability of the cracks makes long-term planning difficult. Evacuation protocols have been drawn up in case residential areas are affected, and some towns have already begun relocating people from the most at-risk regions. The psychological toll is growing as well. Residents live in a state of perpetual unease, unsure if their homes or businesses will literally fall through the cracks. As the scientific community delves deeper into the unfolding mystery along the Texas coast, new layers of complexity continue to emerge, each more perplexing than the last. The event, though sudden and dramatic, is not just a surface-level crisis. It reflects a profound disturbance in the intricate balance of geological and hydrological forces below. While initial responses focused on structural damage and visible effects, researchers are now exploring a broader spectrum of possible causes that extend well beyond conventional tectonics or hydrology. One of the leading-edge areas of exploration involves deep Earth dynamics that have typically been considered dormant in this region. Advanced geophysical models are being used to simulate how minute shifts in mantle convection currents, miles beneath the Earth's crust, might eventually influence surface structures. While such processes unfold over geological timescales, some geologists speculate that even minor perturbations could interact with existing weaknesses in the Earth's lithosphere, causing stress redistributions that manifest at the surface. The fact that these cracks opened without any seismic precursor suggests a complex internal mechanism, possibly linked to previously unknown anomalies in the crust-mantle boundary. These suspicions have led to a re-evaluation of regional tectonic maps. Traditionally, the Texas Gulf Coast has been viewed as geologically passive, a sedimentary basin with little tectonic deformation in the present day. However, new data is revealing faint signatures of microfaults and shear zones previously dismissed as insignificant. Using ultra-sensitive magnetometers and gravimetric sensors, scientists have begun detecting slight density variations in the crust, indicating zones of potential slippage or instability. These microzones, while minor in isolation, could be networked across vast distances, forming a latent fault system that is now beginning to reactivate. This possibility raises unsettling questions about the completeness of current geological knowledge. If Texas harbors undiscovered fault lines or unstable zones deep beneath its sedimentary layers, then the state's perceived geological safety may have been built on a misinterpretation. The implications are vast, not just for disaster preparedness, but for everything from zoning laws to insurance modeling and coastal engineering standards. Beyond the purely geological, there's growing attention to interactions with deep biosphere processes. Researchers in geomicrobiology have taken interest in the cracks as potential conduits linking surface environments with deep microbial ecosystems. These hidden biomes, thriving miles beneath the Earth's surface in superheated, high-pressure conditions, could play a more active role in subsurface dynamics than previously thought. Some hypotheses suggest that microbial activity, including the generation of biogenic gases like methane or hydrogen sulfide, may subtly alter the chemical composition of bedrock or sedimentary layers, weakening their structural cohesion over time. If enough gas builds up, it could generate pressure pockets that eventually rupture through overlying strata, literally forcing the Earth to crack open. These biological factors are particularly intriguing when paired with signs of geochemical change. Field researchers have begun sampling air from within the deeper fissures, noting abnormal concentrations of carbon dioxide, methane, and volatile organic compounds. Not only are these emissions suggestive of subsurface chemical reactions, but their sudden appearance coincides eerily with the visible cracking. Moreover, some of the gases being emitted bear isotopic signatures not typically found in shallow geologic environments, pointing to deep, possibly ancient sources now being vented to the surface. Hydrogeologists are also revisiting assumptions about how subterranean water moves through the region. The Texas coast sits atop a network of aquifers and confining layers that interact in intricate ways. Some cracks have intersected confined aquifers that had remained sealed for millennia. The breaching of these sealed systems may be initiating rapid changes in hydraulic pressure, destabilizing surrounding sediments and accelerating crack propagation. In some zones, these shifts have created artesian springs where none existed before, while in others, entire wetlands have vanished almost overnight as groundwater abruptly drains into subterranean voids. Adding further intrigue, remote sensing has picked up extremely faint electromagnetic fluctuations in the vicinity of the cracks, signals that hint at possible piezoelectric effects. As quartz-rich rocks are compressed or fractured, they can generate weak electrical charges. While typically too minor to influence surface conditions, These signals can act as early indicators of stress accumulation. Some researchers are now developing sensitive detection arrays in hopes of predicting future ruptures by monitoring these subtle emissions. If successful, it could revolutionize how similar geological events are monitored in other stable regions. One area drawing considerable attention is the unusual way vegetation is responding. In the weeks following the appearance of the cracks, plant life along the edges of these ruptures began exhibiting accelerated growth in some areas and near total die-off in others. Botanists and soil scientists are analyzing these changes, uncovering a range of anomalies, shifts in soil pH, mineral content, and even microbial diversity. In one case, a grove of coastal pines, long dormant in terms of growth, suddenly sprouted new buds and shoots, suggesting a release of nutrients or moisture from below. Just yards away, however, a different section of forest withered inexplicably, its root systems apparently severed or poisoned by subterranean contamination. These unpredictable effects point to a profound redistribution of underground elements, a reshaping of the living soil matrix from beneath. This reshaping has extended to coastal morphology as well. Survey teams using LiDAR have documented subtle changes in the elevation profile along the coast, particularly near inlets and estuarine zones. These micro-uplifts and subsidence zones are not uniformly distributed, suggesting a chaotic pattern of deformation likely caused by differential movements below. In the affected regions, tidal flow is behaving erratically, with some inlets experiencing higher than normal surges and others seeing stagnant backwaters. The hydrodynamic behavior of the coastline is shifting, and with it, the entire rhythm of the coastal ecosystem. As the surface continues to deform, there's growing concern about the potential interaction with sea level rise. Normally, models of coastal vulnerability consider sea level rise in isolation, but if the ground itself is sinking or warping unpredictably, those models may dramatically underestimate the risk to coastal infrastructure. In certain areas where cracks have intersected levees and berms, there's a very real danger that protective barriers could fail. Such a failure could allow saltwater intrusion far inland, contaminating freshwater resources and making vast tracts of agricultural land unusable. Furthermore, the psychological and cultural impact of this event is beginning to reverberate through local communities. In coastal towns where families have lived for generations, the land is more than just property, it's a legacy. Watching it split open without cause or warning has left many residents feeling betrayed by the very ground they thought they knew. Some have reported hearing strange echoes or low-frequency hums at night, attributed by some to distant Earth movement. While perhaps explainable through natural acoustics or subtle subsonic activity, the effect has been haunting, adding an almost mythic dimension to an already surreal experience. Schools and local institutions are adapting as well. In certain districts, geology has become a sudden focus of education, with students participating in citizen science efforts, measuring new cracks, logging data, and even interviewing elders about the historical stability of the region. What was once distant scientific theory has become intimate and immediate, transforming everyday people into active observers of planetary change. Interestingly, the event has also caught the attention of space-based observation programs. Agencies monitoring Earth from orbit have redirected satellite assets to focus on the Texas coast, hoping to correlate thermal, spectrometric, and altimetric changes in real time. Early satellite passes have confirmed the rapid and localized deformation but also uncovered anomalies in the heat signature of surrounding waters. In some cases, areas adjacent to newly formed cracks are showing elevated sea surface temperatures. Whether this is due to underwater geothermal activity or simply altered water circulation patterns remains unknown, but the findings are prompting international interest. Global observers are watching with increasing urgency. If such a dramatic and unanticipated geologic event can unfold in Texas, a region thought to be stable, what other regions might be similarly vulnerable? Countries with large coastal populations are reevaluating their geotechnical assessments, looking for parallels in their own sedimentary basins and faultless plains. The Texas event could become a global case study, a cautionary tale about the hidden dynamism of Earth's supposedly quiet zones. Engineers, too, are rethinking long-held design assumptions. Foundations designed for vertical loads may not be sufficient in areas prone to lateral ground displacement. Bridges, pipelines, and railways could all face new stress vectors previously unaccounted for. The infrastructure built on the promise of permanence now stands on newly questionable footing. Discussions have begun in earnest about how to retrofit essential structures, or whether some areas should be abandoned altogether. In parallel, legal experts and policymakers are confronting difficult questions. Who bears responsibility for damage caused by unexplained geological change? How should property lines be redrawn when the very land is moving? Should governments compensate displaced residents, and if so, under what jurisdiction or legal theory? These issues, once the realm of hypothetical debate, are now becoming painfully real. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the cracks beneath Texas? Could this signal something bigger? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.